Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Holistic Health and Hormones podcast, where we dive deep into all things related to health, hormones, and holistic living. In today's episode, we are going to explore something that every woman experiences, yet so many don't truly understand, which is our menstrual cycle. We're going to go beyond just tracking our periods and to discussing the powerful practices of our menstrual cycle awareness. We'll uncover how to tune into the different phases of our cycle that not only can improve our physical health, but also to help us connect more deeply with our bodies and emotions. So, whether you're looking to optimize your energy, improve your mental health, or simply gain a new perspective on your body, this episode is packed with insights on how to love and care for yourself through the natural rhythms of your cycle. So, grab a cup of tea, settle in, and let's get into understanding your menstrual cycle and how that can be the key to loving and supporting your body at every stage of your well-being. Let's jump in. Hi, welcome Thalea Pretorius to my podcast. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing?
Very good. So I just want to let our listeners know a little bit about yourself. So Thalia is a compassionate, trauma-informed coach, passionate about helping women overcome past traumas, stress, and anxiety to live a fulfilling life. She draws upon her personal healing journey, combining trauma-informed techniques with intuitive, mindful practices to empower women to reconnect with their inner strength and create lasting change. She has a bespoke 4-month coaching program which helps to align mind, body, and soul, fostering resilience and self worth. Her vision in doing this is to be the premier sanctuary for transformative growth, inspiring individuals to rise above their current challenges. And she aims to revolutionize the wellness landscape one person at a time through intuitive and compassionate offerings, empowering holistic healing and a profound discovery inspired by faith. Welcome, Talia.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So I'm so excited to have a chat about, you're so informed in so many different topics, but I guess one of the important topics I'd love for us to discuss is really about the menstrual cycle and also how even trauma can be
Mm-hmm.
affecting the way our cycles present ourselves. Like I've got my own sort of take on, menstrual cycle. So I'd love to like really get into everything menstrual cycle related.
Amazing. This is one of my favorite topics to explore because I feel like there's so many different misconceptions around it. And this is such a beautiful tool just to help women connect holistically and compassionately to their bodies.
Correct. Yeah. So I guess one of the first questions is really what is menstrual cycle awareness and why is
Mm-hmm.
it important for women to understand their cycles beyond just sort of tracking? I mean, people don't really start tracking until they're sort of looking at conception, but I guess it
Mm-hmm.
should be going beyond that almost as soon as we start our periods, our menarche, I guess, as young as some girls as young as 9 these days. Let's talk
Mm-hmm.
about why
Mm-hmm.
starts young and what the general age or what I see as being sort of the norm at 14, but it's starting a lot sooner. So let's
Mm-hmm.
just talk about a bit about the menstrual cycle, why it's important, and how that has to do with, I guess, women's health and that.
Amazing. So for a long time, I always thought, just based off the information and the knowledge, and especially when you get your cycle, it's such a vulnerable time in a little girl's life, right? It's like the initiation into womanhood. People are generally celebrating it, and you're like, oh, you can have a baby now. But at such a young age, you don't really understand the full concept of what is happening to my body internally, right? And so the hormones are changing, so many things are changing. And so at this time, as you said, it's happening so much sooner. It's happening a lot. And I think it has also a lot to do with all the hormones and maybe the things that we are consuming on a daily basis. We can dive into all of that as well. And so our bodies are just exposed to so many things on a daily basis that could be also contributing to why little girls or maybe, hormonally getting their periods a lot sooner. And then obviously at such a young age, they're not fully aware of what's happening to their bodies. And maybe even their caregivers at the time don't fully know how to explain it to them. And so that's why this is
Mm,
such a
yeah.
beautiful tool to understand. And even I love to I run workshops around this and I call it the period talk I wish I had when I was 13. And in one
Yes,
of my,
because it's
yeah,
important. It's
exactly.
not
And it's
really spoken
taboo.
about. Yes, yes. Like, it's not a topic that a lot of cultures really their mum discusses with them. You know, you may get a little bit of education
Mm,
in school when
mm,
you're in year 6, I think, which is kind of like a little bit late. You're 11 or 12, right? And so some people have already perhaps even gotten their periods, sooner than that. So to kind of have that sex education talk or period talk, you know, either first year of high school or primary school is really not enough for girls to really understand, but that's how the school sort of runs it.
Exactly, right? And so the education, like most of the time, needs to start at home as well, right? So it's equipping
Mm.
the parents that didn't have, and it's again not from a judgmental space, it's from a space of we didn't know what we didn't know, and now thank you, internet, there's a lot more information, while at the same time, the internet can be very overwhelming with contradicting information. And
Yes.
so having a safe space, I discovered to have these conversations is so important. I started a community where we have these conversations and just to get like deeper understanding of what is happening because everybody is different. Everybody goes through similar things, but differently. And then having that safe space to have these conversations are so important. And so cycle awareness education is really important because it was one of the tools when I first stumbled upon this framework, stumbled upon all of this and teaching it to my clients. I realized this was one of the tools that really brought me deeper self appreciation, compassion, and love for myself, not from a place of, as we're told as women, you have to look a certain way, you have to be a certain size, you have to be attractive, and then you will get the love. And then, as we know, with all the beauty standards and society shouting all these things to us, it's a lot of pressure to keep up. Then navigating all the hormonal changes through the month. And then, as you've probably heard very clearly, oh, it's that time of the month. Oh, it's PMS. Oh, she's just moody again. And we get these like this bad stigma attached to that time of the month. It's your
Yes.
cycle or it's your period. And I'm like, it should be the most honorable time of the month. Your body's going through so much. This is a time that you need to slow down and be nurtured and pampered and taken care of. And it's not looked at like that. We're just forced to keep going
No.
through so many things during that time. Yeah.
And people are actually really afraid of when their periods are coming. If they know it's around the corner, they think that it's expected to have painful periods, that, you know, you're meant to be in bed for 2 days and, oh my gosh, the pain is coming. You know, all of those like PMS symptoms, sore back, tender
Mm,
breasts, like moody swings, right? And then also your partner is thinking you're crazy that time of month. Right? There's all that fetishism, like you said, but it doesn't have to be that way because society thinks it's all normal, but it's actually not really, right? I mean, if those symptoms are there, we have to be mindful as a Chinese medicine practitioner myself, like those things are what things that we need to look at, but we don't address
mhm,
that. And so when people have that pain, they're just masking it through painkillers, right? They're taking a painkiller that month and they're not really looking at what are the signs and symptoms because I go through a very complex signs and symptomology with their periods. I want to know how many days it's lasting, how long are they bleeding for, are there clots, is there pain,
mm,
what are the PMS symptoms, is it regular, is it irregular? Like all of those things are all clues, right, into the
yes.
health of their body. So let's talk a
Mhm,
little bit about how, you know, women need to better understand all of these signs and symptoms, the
yeah.
phases of their menstrual cycle,
Mm,
like even knowing when it's coming and is it
mm,
predictable, is it unpredictable? Because I think most people these days are not really connected to their bodies as much.
mm.
Like what are your
Yes.
thoughts?
Yes, I agree with you so much around that. There's so much disconnection. This is also why the rise of depression and the rise of anxiety, because we're always looking for things outside of ourselves to regulate what's happening within. And so this is again one of those tools that's going to, like you say, give you the clues to figure out what's happening within, right? And so for a long time, I was under the misconception that your period is the 5 to 7 days that you bleed. That's your cycle done. And then we move on with our life, right? And then when I discovered, I'm like, no, that's actually not how it works. It's the full 28 day to 35 plus days. It's the whole cycle from the day you start bleeding till the day it comes back the next month, right?
Yeah.
So it's the whole process. And during that process, there's different phases that occur. And I like to use the framework and the analogy of the seasons because I feel like it just paints a beautiful picture. And so when you are menstruating, the first day of your bleed, that would be called your inner winter. So for that duration of time that you are bleeding, so it's, again, everybody's different. So Generally, it's around about 3 to 5, 7 days approximately, around the time. So you would start tracking from day one. So from the first day. So that would be your day one. And what happens to your body here is your estrogen levels are and is really low during this time, right? And so this is why you probably want to slow down. Your body's feeling a little bit more drained. This is the time where you really need to go inward in thinking of winter. This is like, think of like cuddle season. You want to slow
Yeah.
down, you want to stay in bed, maybe the water bottle, drinking a lot of warm teas, and eating iron rich foods is really important here because you're losing a lot of blood. And so, again, even just having this information is already giving you clues to be like, I need to slow down. I need to nourish myself in a little different way. I need to eat a little bit more iron. I need to, if I love working out, maybe slow down my crazy workout schedule. Maybe slow it down, do more yoga, go for walks, doing things that is slow, gradual, that's
And
easy.
listening to your body, right?
Yes.
Most people don't. They're still doing the same thing. If they're still working out like they do in the middle of the cycle, they're still doing those big workouts when your body is like, well, I'm menstruating. It's almost like I'm getting rid of the old. Also, your body is a lot more tired and
Mm.
deficient at this time because obviously you're losing blood, right? So yes, eating all of those iron-rich foods and warm, nourishing foods that will replenish the lost blood, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
almost giving birth and mini giving birth each time, right? Because it
Mm-hmm.
and for some people, they're actually losing a lot of blood. They have
Yes.
almost 7 to 10 days of really heavy menstrual flow. So they are, losing a lot more and they really need to slow down, but they're still doing a lot of women as nothing changes in their cycle. So yes, like I agree with you. If you look at your cycle as the cycles, like the months, the seasons of the year, we have to realize, okay, what are we doing? We need to hibernate in winter, don't
Yes.
we? We need to slow
Yes.
down, stay inside, right? And not like, not do anything, but we definitely have to look at what is important this time, right? Listen to our body, sleep a little bit more, right? Rest up and take it easy for those few days.
Yes, absolutely. And don't feel guilty for it. Even though your productivity may not look like every other time of the month, your body is working overtime. Your body is
Yes.
doing things just because you can't see it, you don't recognize it or you don't see it as productivity. But your body is working so hard. So, therefore, to work with your body instead of working against your body, the slower
Mm,
you go, the more your body will do what it needs to do in a rested way, in a rested nervous system way, and then it will start to regulate as well, right? And so that's
mm,
really, really important to note that because I know for myself and I know for lots of women, we struggle to slow down, we struggle to rest. And again, it's not because of who we are, it's because of what society and what we've been conditioned to believe. And if you think of the world in the system of the hustle, we all got to keep up with men. Men have a completely different cycle. So instead of going through the 28-day cycle as we go through, they go through all that different phases from the minute they wake up to the minute they go to sleep. They do it. They have a
mm.
day cycle. Every day they go
Yeah,
through their 28 days. They go through all the
that's right.
phases. They
Yeah,
go,
and
yeah.
they're not losing menstrual blood or anything like
Uh,
that. They're not having to go through that rest period as much as women, right? And so they can achieve a lot more. Exactly. And they've got the testosterone to keep them
mm,
pumped up and full of energy to hit the gym every day.
every day.
But we
Yeah.
don't have that, right? We don't have that. Like you said, the progesterone comes later in the cycle, but at
Mm-hmm.
the beginning, we just want to, just it feels good just to cuddle up with a, heat bag
Mm,
or something and be on the couch for 2 days, right? And that's
yes.
the thing, it's guilt. It's like, I should be doing something, I need to work out. There are people that are still doing everything that they were doing prior to having their period still the same because it's like I have women who goes, my body says I have to go, I have to go to the gym. And so if they feel
Mm,
like they're pushed through it, and I said, you should listen to your body. It's telling you to not push through. And that's fine. Don't go to the gym on the first 2 days of your heavy bleed.
absolutely. Absolutely. Right. And then once you've moved through your winter, you've slowed down, you notice towards the end, your energy levels slowly start to rise again. You're starting to feel a little bit more like yourself. You're starting to, feel also during your winter, your social battery is obviously drained. You don't want to be,
Yeah.
your energy levels are low. So you don't want to really be spending a lot of time in crowds or with people. And again, that's a clue not to feel like, oh, now I'm being antisocial and I can't. Again, once you start tracking all of this information and you see how the patterns start to show up every month, you can schedule your life according to your cycles. So then you can start to be like, okay, during my bleed week, during my inner winter, this is the time where I'm going to try my best. Again, every schedule is different, things happen, but I'm going
Mm,
to try my best with the new information and the awareness that I have to schedule less things during that time. So whether it's
yeah.
work obligations where you need to be people facing, whether it's social activities, all of those things. You can now align your work schedule and your social schedule alongside your body. Again, going with your body, not against your body, which we are conditioned to think is the right way to go. Right? And so now moving out of winter, we'll go into our inner spring. So this is where the estrogen and the testosterone starts to rise. So this is when we start to feel a little bit more alive. And again, looking at the beautiful analogy of spring, flowers are starting to bloom. The sun is a little bit more out. There's a little bit of
Yes.
a breeze in the air. There's a little step in your spring, spring in your step. You're feeling a little bit more alive. And so just as the weather shows us and the beautiful seasons, that's how we start to feel on the inside. And so here we can start to eat foods that will metabolize our estrogen, focusing on sprouted things, and fermented foods is really good. And this is the best time for to start to go to the gym again and doing a little bit more intense workouts, where it's that weight training or the HIIT classes or more cardio-y stuff, whatever. Your body is now in flow with the energies coming back. So it has the
Yes.
capacity to do those things and eat a little bit more and nourish yourself in this way because it has the energy. So again, you're working with your body. And you'll also notice your energy, like I said, goes up. So you're a little bit more social. So you'd want to maybe go out a little bit more and meet people and be a little bit more chatty and a little bit more social. Again, still at a gradual pace, going again, listening to your body. Everybody's different. And so going at a pace that feels comfortable and that feels nourishing to you without trying to force anything. And this also takes a while. As I'm sharing this is just information. But the more you track, the more you get aware, the more you will start to see the similarities that show up every month, the more you start to see certain traits in yourself, and you'll start to notice some new things that you probably were completely blind to, that you didn't even realize because you've giving yourself time to slow down and acknowledge the body cues. Our body speaks to us every day, all day. We just never know what it's saying. And so this process gives us vocabulary, gives us understanding, and it also takes away that stigma attached to you crazy. You're like, no. I have evidence, I have meaning, I have actually vocabulary to counter the fact that I'm crazy. I'm not crazy. This is what's happening.
Yes. Yes. You can recognize the patterns, right? You can
Yes.
recognize the pattern. Okay. Yep. This is a pattern here.
Yeah, definitely. And then we go into moving from summer, we'll move into our ovulation phase. So this would be our inner summer, right? So moving from spring, we then move into summer, and that's our ovulation phase. As you know, during ovulation, this is where your body's getting ready to have a baby. And like she said, every month I'm having like a mini labor, right? If there's no baby to be had. And so during this, so as we know from the biology standpoint, when we are shedding, when we are bleeding, that's when the lining of our womb is being released. And so during the rest of the 28 days, that lining is being rebuilt again. If it is time for it to have a baby, that lining is there to protect and to house the baby. If it doesn't, that's what happens when we bleed. So during this time, this is when our attraction field is high. And this is natural. You can even look at animals, when they attracting a mate, there's a different mating call, there's a different style, there's a
Pheromones,
different thing.
yeah.
All of that's happening,
Yeah.
right? And we are exactly the same. Our attraction field is so high. We maybe a little bit more flirtatious. We want to go out more. We want to be more social. So this would be the perfect time if you want to book sales calls, when you want to go on a date, when you want to be the center of attention without even trying, because it's magnetic. This is just when you're in your absolute flow. Again, when you know this, you know how to schedule your life around this. And this is where you can get the most amount of work done also, because your energy levels are better. So even when scheduling, especially if you're working for yourself or you working in team space, wherever you are, if you can schedule your most productive time during that week of ovulation, you will notice you can probably get 10 times more work done than you would during your winter or during your premenstrual stage and whatever. So actually, when you start to figure all of these things out and really look at the evidence, look at the awareness that you're getting, look at all the different patterns, and you start to work with your body in this way, you will notice you're not ever losing productivity, because you will make up for it in different places.
It, right?
You're just shifting.
Yeah, you're shifting it to different times. Yeah.
Yeah, that's working with your body, so you don't feel drained, you don't feel overworked, you don't feel overwhelmed, you don't feel burnt out by the end of the month, and you just like keep going, and it's just like this forceful energy that keeps going. right? And during this time also, when you are in your most magnetic space and you're just feeling alive, your intuition is also high at this time, and you just know things and you feel good about yourself during this time, which is a wonderful time to be in. And then slowly, once this slowly starts to come down in your energy levels, you start to notice generally a week or so before your period starts. This is the luteal phase. We move into that inner autumn. So now your body's preparing for that winter again. And so now
Yeah.
you're noticing that your estrogen is plunging back down. And this can cause symptoms like the PMS symptoms that we may be familiar with, the mood swings, the cravings of like more starchy things or the comfort food,
Yes, we
the
love the comfort
sweets
food
and the
around.
chocolates will come up in here. And even knowing this information, you can still nourish yourself in a really healthy way. I'm never going to say restrict and not eat the thing that brings you the comfort, but also now knowing this, you can already start planning meals and stuff that's nourishing, that's also a little bit sweet, but you can do it in a healthier way, whatever that looks like for you. And then add in the little sweet snack here and there as well. Again, it also just helps with planning and helping with the moods there. And then here also you would slow down your workouts a little bit more. So you could still work out and go to the gym, do the things, but then if you're noticing you're not lifting as heavy weights or you can't run as fast, whatever, be gentle with
Mm,
yourself. Your body's doing what it needs to
mm,
do to get ready for winter. So just go at the cadence and at the pace that your body is allowing you to go. Because in 2 weeks, 3 weeks time, you'll be lifting, you'll be running, you'll be doing all the things again. So it's all just a beautiful cycle, right? And during this time, this is the least ideal time, your winter and your autumn. Autumn, so this would be your menstrual and your luteal phase. This is the least important time for you to, if you do intermittent fasting or fasting of any time, this would be
yes.
least advised during this time because your body
Yeah.
needs to be fueled. Your body needs
Yeah.
all the things that it's craving. And so this is not a good time to be taking those nutrients away because your body's losing a lot of things and you need to replenish that so that even though your energy levels are low, you are still at an optimal energy level to still do what you need to do in those areas there.
Yeah, it's such an important point because I've got clients that are intermittent fasting. I'm like, we cannot be doing that during your menstrual cycle and
Mm,
just before, right? So almost like the few days before, leading up and all the way through period, you've got to be eating a little bit more. You probably feel a little bit more
mm-hmm.
hungrier,
Yep.
right? Because you're getting more, you can't be doing the same thing you're doing throughout the whole 28, 30 days,
Mm,
right? Things need to be adjusted, right? It is so important that people understand when to do things and when not to. We can't just go about the same thing from day one to day 28. It's so, so important. And it brings an important point to intermittent fasting because
mm,
people have so many questions around that. And I'm like, sure, if you want to do it in the middle of the cycle, right? As long as you're not trying to have a baby, you can do it in the middle of the
mm-hmm.
cycle. But yes, for the other times, for that week prior and during your period, definitely need a lot of extra meals for
Yes,
sure. Mm,
absolutely. And so again, just from that beautiful framework that I shared, there's so many wisdom key nuggets in there, right? And again, it's not a one size fits all scenario. Yes, the cycles and the information stays the same, but your feedback your body's going to give you is not going to be the same as the next person. And so that's when the tracking will come in, why it's important. And it's so important, as I explained, not only for falling pregnant, that's one of the reasons why we track,
mhm.
either to fall pregnant, to avoid falling pregnant, but then all
Yeah.
the beautiful keys that you can learn about yourself in this way. I come from a background of really bad disordered eating, right? I always used to be on a diet, restrict, binge. That's kind of my cycle of like I'm either all in or I'm all out and I'm binging and I'm restricting. And when I discovered this helped me really fall in love with my body because it helped me understand it not from a aesthetic point of view or from all the conditioning that I used to feel was truth. I had to look a certain way, so I have to push, I have to punish myself, I have to do all of these things. This really helped me to be a little bit more compassionate with myself, hold myself a little bit more gently, understanding all
Mm,
of this, understanding what's happening to my body. So then I can immediately notice, okay, the moods are coming up. Okay, check the side. Okay, this makes so much sense. And then it just gives you a piece of calm. You'll be like, okay,
it's
I
all
am not
normal.
going mad. This is all normal. This is going to happen again. I can now just accept it instead of trying to avoid what's coming or push against it. It's more like, okay. And it also, I love this because it's also a communication tool. Because now with your loved ones around you, your work colleagues, your friends, whatever it is, you have vocabulary now to be like, I'm not feeling well. Why? Because this is what's happening right now. I'm noticing, I'm tracking. I'm noticing this. So you can communicate it with ease, not from a place of actually I don't know what's happening. You think I'm crazy, so I'm crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So I guess there's that huge connection between the menstrual cycle awareness and your mental health, right? We just touched on that. So I guess
Yes.
what is that sort of connection between your menstrual cycle, your mental health, particularly those mood swings
Mm,
and the anxiety and the depression that we keep
mm.
seeing throughout the whole cycle?
Yes, exactly. And so I work with some of my clients also who struggle a lot with this because it can also be really erratic. Again, understanding. And also, if you are this, I would advise go to any health practitioner, whether that's your doctor, your gynecologist, especially with women who struggle with PCOS and maybe don't get their cycles on a regular basis and it's irregular. So that's a hormone imbalance there, and with endometriosis. So for them, sometimes the mood swings can be really, really drastic due to an imbalance of the hormones. Things are not completely working the way it does. So I really highly recommend tracking is the first sign, just to get all the information for yourself, and then having these conversations with a professional so that if there is any way to help balance and regulate, again, whether that is supplements, whether that is going on a medication, whatever that is, but again, do your research. Don't take everything as face value. I really would advise when you go in with questions. Don't be afraid to ask, understand, get the full holistic understanding, because one
Yes.
medication could also then help with certain things, but then it could also affect the mental health. So you need to know what you're getting yourself into so you can also have better understanding. You can hold yourself through the process, especially when you're trying to regulate. That takes time. Your body has been working at a certain level for so long. For it to change, for it to get to a stabilized situation, it's going to take trial and error, because you might also have to add certain foods to your diet. You may have to take off certain foods out of your diet. And so it's a long process, but it's going to be the most rewarding process because it's going to come from a holistic standpoint. You're going to notice the energy is going to shift and
Mm.
stabilize. You're going to notice your hormones. Hormones are so important and they're going to help regulate. And this process is, again, it's not a one size fits all process. And I think for a long time, it's so standardized things that we just get told. But knowing you, and this is where knowing your body, knowing your symptoms, knowing the little subtle cues that your body is telling you, that information is going to help your healthcare provider so much more, because then you can communicate exactly and then you can take responsibility and you can have a level of autonomy in the way that I want to look after my body. I don't have to just take what everybody else is telling me. I can actually have some say in what's happening here, and I can feel empowered in that way. I can take my health and I can feel empowered about how I'm looking after myself.
Because I think a lot of the time women now aren't feeling empowered. So if they
Mm,
have these painful periods, they go to their general practitioner, they go to
mm,
their doctor, and the first thing the doctor will say is, well, let's just put you on the contraceptive, right?
mm-hmm,
So I see this with fertility, I guess and then before you know it, as a teenager, because I guess that's where it starts,
mm,
right? How
mm-hmm,
your parents educating you, where your parents are taking you as a teen, right? So if you've got painful periods, if you even bring it up with your mother and if she's got
mm,
the awareness, first thing they know, unless they are in the holistic space, is just let's go to their GP. Right, so if they're between 14 and 18, the first thing they will do is just put them on the contraceptive. And then before you know it, they've been on that for 20 years, right?
mm-hmm.
Until they can see them, they're coming off, and then that's a whole nother conversation.
Yes.
But they're not really understanding, okay, first of all, when you first start menarche, yeah, there could be a bit of pain, things are starting to sort of just beginning, right? And so it
Mm,
hasn't really had time to sort of even out. But even women in their 20s, they sort of get sick with the pain, they get fed up. And so it's either a contraceptive pill or
mm,
it's painkillers every single month. But really understanding, the experience of having to go through painful periods is to seek the right help to, like you said, to really understand where it's coming from. So either getting the proper bloods, right, seeing an OBGYN, getting
mm,
perhaps diagnoses for endometriosis PCOS, which is not done enough.
mm-hmm.
So people think that having painful periods, right, in quotations, that it's actually
Yes.
normal, but could be underlying conditions. I've had people who've had silent endo for, 6 or 8 years before they get diagnosed and needing to go through surgery or being on the specific um, help that they need, but they think it's all part of norms. Understanding like what is normal, what is not, and to get help and to whether it's holistic help you're going down
Mm,
or if it needs to be through a GP doctor, but getting the investigative work done as early as you can will give you an understanding, okay, what is considered normal? What help can you do to get back on track? Because
mhm,
the cycle, like you said, should be beautiful. You should be going through the seasons,
mhm,
right? With the flow, with the ebbs and flow of
mhm,
nature and be able to come out each month and go, okay, no, I'm just going with the cycles, but it shouldn't be a detriment to your mental, emotional state, your physical health. You shouldn't be in bed for 2 days. Like, how your body should be really, going through these seasons, right? So
Yes, definitely. And once you find your cadence, once you get into that rhythm, get into that flow, it's not something that you want to avoid every month. It's something that you actually start to look forward to because it's a signal that my body is working really well. And
yes.
even coming down to looking at the color of your blood will indicate, how your body is doing and how your body and what your body is doing right. And so all of these things are so, like I said, there's so many misconceptions around it. And so that's why having these kind of conversations are so important, just to bring deeper understanding and awareness around it. And again, from the younger, the better. And sharing on that as you go to the GP, you go to all of these things, and the first thing is generally the contraceptive. And there's so many hormones put into those things that you have no idea of what you're ingesting and what you're putting into your body. Then later on, 20 years later, then you have the problem of conceiving and all these different things that may come. And sometimes the simple remedy to those problems could be adjusting your diet, eating according to what your body needs. The simple things are what we put into our bodies are so important. So food is a huge thing there. And most of the time, the general practitioners, they're not nutritionists. They haven't studied food, so they don't
Yeah, that's right.
know. So again, it's take the empowered route and educate yourself. Don't feel like you just have to take everything for face value.
Yeah, like, do the research because the big thing that I see is a lot of women eating a lot of cold foods. I mean, I don't know
Mm,
if you
mm,
understand it, but in Chinese
yes.
medicine, it's all about nourishing,
Wishing.
warm, really warm. Like in winter, you wanna eat warm foods, it's the same. So you shouldn't be having the cold smoothies in the morning. You shouldn't be having icy drinks, right? You shouldn't be having a lot of sugar and ice cream, although you may feel, "I've got PMS, oh, I'm just gonna eat all this ice cream," then you feel all of that. So there are certain things that we can do to really minimize the effects. There's some great supplements we can take that will help us to go through the winter with better understanding and to see,
Mm,
okay, no, it doesn't have to be this way, right? I work with acupuncture, and most people notice that
mm,
after a couple of sessions, their periods, the first thing they notice is it's not as painful. I didn't have to take as many
mm,
painkillers, if at all, right? So if a
yeah.
pain might go from a 9 to like a 2, they're like,
Mm,
oh, wow, I've never been, I've never noticed that it's supposed to be like this, right? And so they're just used to this conditioning. So I guess how does
mm,
that menstrual cycle awareness really help them to understand their bodies better, to have
mm,
that self-love? Because if your cycle is nourishing you and you're
mm,
really thinking, this is what as a woman we're going through because
mm,
it is supposed to help us make a baby,
mm,
and if it isn't, it's really that acceptance that this is what we're supposed to go through, right?
mm,
And for those who've struggled with menstrual issues in the past, it's this whole mentality around that disdain for their body, they don't
mhm,
accept their body, and then they go through all of the foods which are actually detrimental because it's this vicious cycle. There's pain, and then they're
mm,
like, "Well, I hate my body anyway, it's not working." Or for those that, going through
mm.
fertility issues
Yep,
or even just with the menstrual cycle, it's affecting
yeah,
the fertility. So there's this
yep,
whole vicious cycle
mm,
that instead of it being a beautiful, flourishing thing that goes through the nice seasons of the year, it's just always causing them trouble. And they will go through
exactly.
the 30 days every month for years on end, just hating on their bodies, not having
Mm.
that acceptance and not having that love. And so then they become so disconnected with that.
Exactly. And then the disconnection there then stems into, like you said, the self loathing, the lack of self worth, going into just the lack of confidence because now you don't want to go out because you feel horrible and
Yeah.
you feel comfortable. And so then you start isolating. And the more you start to isolate, you go down that rabbit hole of depression and just, what really, this is something that should be the most beautiful thing in a woman's life. But because there's that misconception around it, and all of these painful things happen, therefore we then internalize it as I'm broken, I'm the
Yeah.
problem, my body's not working. I and then it's embarrassing. It could also lead to really strained relationships. So you can see how this really toggles into every facet of your life, maybe with your partner, your husband. Again, if you are struggling, falling pregnant, even wanting to have sex could be not something that
Yeah.
you really feel like doing. So then that could cause something. And so it just becomes a really vicious cycle. And that's not normal in the sense of there is freedom on the other side of that. You just
Yeah.
have accustomed yourself to think that this is just how it's going to be. because I don't know what it looks like. And so I hope that this conversation just enlightens you that there are different ways. And that's the whole important power of this conversation, is to empower people to realize, wow, there is a different way. And let me investigate this. Let me get curious. And that's the beautiful thing about the awareness. Awareness gives you an opportunity to make choices and to create change. Without having that, then we just think we just have to be in this robots mentality, just go with the flow, just have to please everyone, just keep going and not make a noise. And then you just turn into the people pleaser. And then you feel deep down, you feel so unfulfilled with your life. This is not something that needs to take away from your life. This is something that's going to empower you so that you can live your most authentic, fulfilled life and do all the amazing things that you want to do. And it starts when you're really young. And I'm thinking, even just like with my process, I really take people through this beautiful meditative experience where I take them back to when they got their period for the first time and what that
Yeah.
felt like. And as I journey with my clients through this, it's almost inner child healing as well, because now
Correct.
all the information that you didn't get when you were a child, or the ridicule maybe you got on the playground, or you messed on your dress, those things stay with you. Those things
Oh,
stick
yeah,
with you.
trauma, right? I mean,
Trauma.
yeah, if
And
you
that's
did
where
the
the trauma
same
comes
to a
in.
dress,
Yeah.
right? You've been teased as a child, or you didn't
Mm,
know what was happening, or you started your menarche really young,
mm,
and so by the time you went to high school, all the boys, your breasts were showing, and
yeah.
you had a very bad teenage years because it comes
Mm,
down to years and
mm-hmm,
how that was handled definitely affects your fertility and your
mm,
reproductive journey until you hit menopause. And so I guess, it's really important that women, as young as you can, as soon as you start your periods, having that conversation, if your mother will listen to you,
mm,
or if you're a mom and you've got a daughter, really getting her to understand and really look at that really healthy menstrual cycle as early
mm.
as possible, because
Yes.
it will save you a whole lot of heartache if you can fall pregnant naturally, if you can have a really beautiful cycle. Every hormone
Mm,
is working the way it should. You're not going to come across infertility issues. You're not going to have
mm,
all of these problems that most women are having in their 30s and 40s.
mm,
It's a lot harder to correct that when you are trying to conceive than when you were to correct it a lot earlier, in your 20s even. Maybe you don't know any better in your teens, but as soon as you come into being a proper adult, you can start making your
yes.
own decisions when you're 21.
Yeah.
Right? You start being in a romantic relationship, right? You can really go, okay, what can I do to really be empowered to understand my body, right?
Mm,
What can I do to make sure that everything is functioning properly at this age so I'm not having issues with
mm,
my hormones and fertility when it really counts, when I'm ready to have a baby, to be a
yes.
mother? This has all been dealt with. And so we're not coming
Yes.
across these obstacles, because I can tell you it's very, very hard on you physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially
Mm,
if you do need to
mm,
go down IVF, because this wasn't addressed when it should have been addressed 10 or 15 years earlier, right? And so when you're
absolutely.
40 and trying to address this, as opposed to when you're 25, it's a whole different story.
Yes. And another tool that I love to add to this is stress plays such a huge impact on the body, as we know.
Yes.
And the trauma and the emotional aspect that we spoke about briefly now plays a huge part, because, as we know, with any traumatic experience that we've experienced, like the little comment on the playground, that was just a moment. And you didn't even think it was a big thing until we address it and we go back and we're like, whoa, that comment actually stuck because it lived here. So every time something to that extent happens to me, it triggers that emotion, it triggers that experience, almost like a little bit of PTSD there. Like, I can't go out when I'm on my period because I'm scared I'm going to mess and
Yeah.
somebody's going to see, blah, blah, blah. And it just trickles with behavior, right? So it's all interconnected. And so when you're addressing that, that all lives within your body. Your body stores all of that, as we know, with trauma. That's where it lives, right? Gets triggered in the mind and stores in the body. And so when you are experiencing a cycle and it's a really heavy bleed, something I like to do also is just in that moment of my winter is have a moment of reflection. How was my last month? So it's a nice like little stock take, right? It happens generally for most women. We have our bleed every month. That's a nice little pause and reflection. How was my last month? Am I
Mm,
experiencing a lot of pain now? Because if I am, how stressed was I last month? What was the emotional toll? Did I carry a lot of weight last month? Right? Because all those small things you don't realize at the time impact the pain, the stress on the
totally.
body,
Yes.
all of that. So even just
Mm.
taking a moment to reflect over your last month, be like, oh, okay, I definitely was a little bit more stressed last month. Maybe that's why my period is actually a little 2 days or 3 days later than usual. Oh, this makes sense. Some key wisdom over there. Oh, this is why I'm feeling a lot more pain than usual. I was really, really stressed last month. And so what I like to do when I have these reflection moments is as my physical body is shedding and releasing, I then I have a mental stock take, and then I'm like, okay, as my intention for this bleed is to release the stress that I carried last month with my bleed. And so then again, it's like, okay, next month I'm going to be more mindful and I'm not going to be as stressful. See what areas in my life I need to maybe outsource or ask for help or not carry all of this weight. Maybe I need to just have a little honest conversation with a friend or my partner. So you see, there's so many different juicy layers to this that all
Yeah.
impacts our bodies and our mental health, our emotional health, and our physical bodily health.
Yeah, because from a Chinese medicine perspective, when we
Mm,
stress, our energy gets
mm.
stuck, right? Flow
Yes.
the blood, it's more sticky, it's more harder to sort of go in that smooth
Mm,
flow, right? Everything is more, it's more stuck, right? The energy.
yes.
And so you're going to have that pain because it's not, it's not that smooth flow anymore. You've got clots and you've got pain because everything, when you stress, your body tightens, right? Your
Mhm.
energy stagnates.
Mm,
And so you've got what we call this energy stagnation. So it causes
yes.
that dark blood. It causes a lot of the pain. So when we can be more in flow, we can nourish, we can calm ourselves. It definitely helps the energy flow to be there. And it definitely, that's why the acupuncture is amazing because it
Yes.
helps that flow of energy, right? But if we can do it ourselves through breath work,
Mm,
through, I guess, daily self care, journaling,
mm,
awareness
mm.
into our everyday, from the start of our cycle to the next start of the cycle, we really need to just see how can we if it's coming up, our periods, how can we de-stress in this week? Because if we can just do those little things, it will definitely help when the period is coming. So yeah, some
Yes.
amazing sort of tidbits and a little bit of self-awareness for the women. And I guess lastly, what are some, would you say, empowering rituals? We talked about a few, but what other
Mhm.
sort of empowering rituals or any practices that women can do during each phase of their cycle to really honor their body, to honor their health, to honor them as a woman? What can they do
Definitely.
to really, yeah.
So I would say during your winter, the first 2 days, take it as slow as possible. So whether that is just having a bed day, sitting on the couch, just do as little as possible and enjoy the downtime with guilt free. Try to take the judgments off as most, again, work with your schedule, what you can allow and what you can't. But then again, every month you can start to track and you'll start to have, so you can start to plan in advance and be like, okay, these 2 days, roughly around these 2 days or this next week coming up, I really want to slow down. And so that's going to be really helpful. I usually say from the third day, you start to feel a little bit better. But the first 2 days, I would really recommend slowing down. Then in your spring, I would highly recommend taking full advantage of your spring and your summer season. So this is when your energy is really high, again, adding things that bring you joy also during this time, like,
Mm.
the social things, do joyful activities, do the hobbies, do the fun things, spend time with your kids, like really be in the flow of it, working with your body, add some fun things into your life because I mean, this is your every day. So that as much as there's the downtime, there needs to be the joyful time too, Don't take the joy out of the journey. Add it
Yes.
in. This is all
We still
part
have to
of
enjoy
the
our life. Yeah.
exactly. And it's all part of the beautiful human experience we've been blessed with. And so adding those joyful things into those moments. And I also would say, if I just go backtrack a bit into your menstrual phase, would slow down 100%. Reflect, like I said, notice the month, maybe take some notes, journal, release physically with your body, all the stress, all the stuff that you want to release during that. Your intuition is also really higher. So this is a beautiful time when you're slowing down to dream, to vision, to, sometimes during the bleed time, it's our most heightened. Our senses are so heightened, but because we're so busy, we don't even realize it. And so during that downtime, this could be maybe a new idea for a project pops into your head. A new idea to do something creative pops into your head. It's not the time to activate it, but this is maybe a beautiful space where we get a dream, manifest, ideate all these wonderful things because we're in a slower space. Then
Yeah.
during the spring and the summertime, that's our activation time. That's where we can take
Yeah.
that idea and we can start implementing some plans, do some things. And then during the ovulation phase, this is where, okay, now we're ready for conception. This is ready for child, we're ready to make that baby. So whether it's not a physical baby, this is metaphorical creation phase, right? This is where we get to birth creations into the world. This is where we
Yeah.
get to be social, the social butterfly, attraction, things flow to us with ease. And so think of it that way, even though I'm not physically conceiving a baby, but what is happening here, I get to birth a new project. I get to do something fun. I get to release something into the world during this time. So even looking at it from a creative lens, so that will be quite cool. And then once that project gets in motion and you set everything up, and then you can slow down again and then you pick it up again. And so you can see this beautiful rhythm working with your body, not against your body.
Such amazing tips.
Mm,
So amazing, Talia. I think you've covered so much today,
mm,
but it's really just that coming back to that awareness, right? To let women
mm,
really know what they need to start doing if they haven't already, to start tracking, to start honoring their bodies, to start listening to their bodies, a lot of which we don't do anymore, right? We sort of, when it's too late, we want to go through IVF or we want to,
mm,
go through the harder things, right? Go on the contraceptive because it's all too much
mhm.
instead of going, what is the root cause? What can we do to take back that empowerment, right? To really look after our bodies the way we're meant to and not give our power over to, things which isn't really going to help you in the long run. It's just a
Yes,
band-aid effect to what is really
exactly.
underneath and what we need to work on to get our bodies into better health. So
Yes.
thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom. If you want to connect with Talia, I'll put her links in the chat. But thank you so much for really bringing this topic to light, because I think more people should understand. If you've got a teenage daughter or a daughter that's coming up to their menarche years and you're listening, I think it's good to really understand how we can perhaps help them be
Mm,
more informed, because it's a scary time for teenagers.
mm,
And even a lot of adults don't really fully understand their own menstrual cycle and the flow. So if we can shed some light, if we can start having that awareness and that communication with ourselves and with,
mm.
our loved ones, it would make a lot of difference. So thank you for joining
Absolutely.
us today.
Thank you so much, Elliot. It was such a pleasure to have this conversation. And my last words would be that whoever listens to this episode, I hope that this really resonates with you, and know that there's nothing wrong with you. You've just been misinformed, and there's so much opportunities just to empower yourself again and take back the power that you feel maybe was taken from you.
Amazing. That's
Mm.
so true. All right. Thank you so much. And yeah, have an amazing, amazing rest of your day. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. If you've got any questions, please pop it in the comment section, and we'd love to hear what you got out of this episode. So thanks so much, Thalea.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Holistic Health and Hormones podcast. If you found today's episode inspiring or informative, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It'll help us reach more women like you on their journey to vibrant health and balance. For more tips, resources, or to work with me directly, visit my websites. And remember, your health is your superpower. Keep nurturing it, and I'll see you in the next episode.